Hello, I'm Deborah Clay, author of The Borrowed Boy and Just Be, and presenter of Castaway Books. Each week I invite one of my favourite authors to tell me about the books that have inspired their life and influenced their writing. This week's guest is Lizzie Chantree. House, the little ice cream shop by the sea, and I'm enjoying that very much. But because I'm really fascinated by your career, Lizzie, because you're an award-winning inventor, had your own business at the age of 18, and British Female Inventor of the Year 2020. So a great entrepreneur, not just as an author entrepreneur, but as a business entrepreneur. So I'm hoping we'll find out all about that in our chat today.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's a bit of a strange and a bit bonkers, my career, but never a dull moment, we'll say that.
Excellent. So, looking forward to it. Did you have trouble choosing 5 books?
Well, there's so many, isn't there? Especially my age as well. I've read quite a lot of books by the time I got to this age. But yeah, there's just so many when you think back, because you don't tend to always think back about childhood and the books you loved then. But it really made me think of kind of different stages in my life and what I was reading then and what influenced me. So it's quite actually interesting sort of task to go back and sort of pair books with times of your life.
Absolutely. Yes, it's and sometimes you read them at different stages in your life, so it doesn't always necessarily fit in one place. So, shall we start with your first book?
Yes, so the first one was the famous Five series by Enid Blyton, and obviously she did so many amazing books. But as a child, those were the books that I just can't, could not wait to read another one. Just basically because they were full of adventure, and they obviously had children in them, and had a dog, and they were always just getting up to mischief and going on these wonderful, wonderful adventures. And I just found that really inspiring and exciting as a child to read about.
Excellent. Enid Blyton comes up quite a bit, because I think we grew up with Enid Blyton, didn't we? The
Yes.
famous Five and Secret Seven. I don't know whether children today are enjoying those books still, but they certainly were all part of our childhood.
Yes, totally. I mean, like I say, I watched some of your podcasts before, and I noticed other people mentioning them, and it was just like, obviously, that's the era of books we were reading, and so many people enjoyed them. Pretty much everyone of my age group, if I asked them what books they were reading, it'd probably be something to do with Enid Blyton, just because they were fun. It really excited children about reading.
Well, they were real page turners, weren't they? You wanted to find out about the mystery, and you felt that you could be there, you could be that child, and so it's full of adventure. I can see why. Well, I loved them myself. I read every one of them.
Yeah, so I think like exactly what you said, it was like the adventure of it, and you didn't know what they were going to get up to next, and were they were really trying new things, were they going to get any trouble, were they going to find something really exciting, and also it was a group of them working together, sort of teamwork, and with the dog as well. I think it was just very, very relatable to children.
Yeah, the two girls, Anne and George, were sort of very sort of stereotypical. The goody, pretty, sweet one, and the tomboy, and they very stereotyped, weren't they? Whereas most of us were somewhere between.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at the time as a child, I just thought the books were wonderful. I thought all the different characters. I think it was more about not what they look like or anything like that. For me, it was just about the adventure and the teamwork of them together as a group of friends and just having these amazing adventures together. So for me, it was kind of about what they were going to get up to next. It was more about that.
Mm. So, what were you doing? How old were you when you were reading those books?
Well, I was looking back, I think I was around primary school sort of age. So I was getting to the stage where I was kind of allowed out on my own a bit more. So at the end of our road, there was a library, quite a small library. But to me, it was like, a really big adventure to be able to walk down to the end of the road on my own. And then I was allowed into the library, and it had a beautiful children's section. So there was like walls and walls of books, which to me was like so exciting. I remember there was tables and chairs, but I used to sit on the floor a lot. I don't know why, but I used to like sitting on the floor near the books and just being really like right up to those bookcases, sort of picking the books, touching all the covers. And it was just such an exciting place to be, and to be allowed to go there on my own and pick my own books was quite a sort of a big thing for me at that age.
I know. Libraries are wonderful to children. I remember taking my daughter's friend once to the library, and she'd never been to the library before. She must have been about 8. And she said, "You can really take them out. You don't have to pay for them." And she was so amazed by it. So that was incredible.
You can actually borrow a book and take it home. It's like, wow.
With her mother's permission, I then enrolled her because she hadn't been enrolled, and she then became fanatic about going to the library. So I can say I introduced her to books.
Yeah, and the Mr. Men and the Little Miss books and all of those kind of ones. I remember collecting hundreds of those. I absolutely loved all those cheeky stories as well. They were another favourite of mine.
But I worry about libraries disappearing because there are
Me
children who
too.
can't afford to buy books, or parents don't read, so they don't get them books. And without that introduction to the library, they miss out on reading. So it is a worry.
Yeah, I do. I feel the same. And a lot of people can't travel far. So having a local library is so important. It's a big part of the community. And some people that don't get out a lot, it really gets them into the community. They can talk to people, they can read in the library, use the computers. So totally, it's something we need to sort of really look after.
All the groups as well that they have in
Yes.
libraries. Yeah.
And they're a great support for authors as well, the libraries.
Mm. Mm. So should we go on to book two?
Yes, yeah. So the second book that I've noted down is The Hobbit, so by J.R.R. Tolkien, and it's. I was at. I remember this very vividly. I was at English classes in school, and we were given this great big book, and I thought, oh my goodness, here we go. What's this going to be like? This massive book we've got to get through. And I just remember the absolute wonder of this book, literally page after page after page of magic and different characters and having to work together. And it was I just couldn't believe a book could be that way, because I'd read lots of books, but I hadn't read something sort of that genre or something quite so magical. And that made me literally want to read every book I could get my hands on. So it was quite a pivotal point for those kind of books for me, because I tended to stick with what I knew.
So what was going on in your life about the time you were reading The Hobbit, Lizzie?
That was a time where I was kind of thinking about leaving school, what I'd want to do when I left school, and if I was going to do college or not. So I was very much into sort of art and design at school. And I ended up going to college, where I joined. There wasn't actually a place on the graphic design course. So I applied for a display and design course and started that. And then while I was sort of started the course, a place came up on the other course that I'd originally wanted. So quite a few of us applied, and I was really lucky that I got the space. Um, so I did graphic design for 2 years at college. And then the funny thing is that actually I ended up then working in retail and wholesale for a long time. So actually the display and design element of my course that I'd learned at the start, all the technical drawings and things like that, actually came in very, very handy. So actually, even though I didn't do much of the first course, I did enough to actually help me in my further career later on.
That was really lucky, wasn't it?
It
Sometimes
was.
they come into your life that you don't expect, and then you realize later why they did.
That's it, exactly it. It was just, I actually did so much technical drawing. I used to think, oh goodness, why am I doing so much technical drawing? My friend absolutely adored that side of it, whereas I preferred sort of dealing with the products. But actually it was very, very great, because when I had shops, then I knew how to style the products and where to put the products and how to design it and everything. So actually it was absolutely brilliant.
And has it helped you as well as an author with your cover design and your marketing?
Yes, it's been an absolutely massive help, because obviously when it comes to cover designs, I then have a firm idea of what the kind of thing I'm looking for, with typefaces, with any sort of graphics work, with book memes or any sort of marketing really. It's been a massive help, because it's really backed up that knowledge of, again, retail and wholesale as well. I kind of understand the background of what has to happen, because it is a business.
That really comes over, though. What I've picked up with you through your social networking as well as your books is very clear message, beautiful graphics. It's very marketable. The way you present yourself is an awful lot.
Thank you.
From you.
Years of practice. Years and years of practice. But yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that graphic design is something I absolutely love, but I also used to find marketing like so scary. I used to just think, what do I do? I came into this industry knowing nothing really. Very much self-taught in some aspects. So I think you've just got to like learn as you go along, and then utilize what you learn. But now I find marketing like a really good challenge. I give seminars on it. I do networking things. It's I run book groups. It's sort of kind of pushing yourself a little bit out of your comfort zones and trying new things.
I'm very impressed with your networking, and I love your networking for authors, which I find really helpful. I've recommended it to a few other authors who've also found it useful.
Yes. It's good to hear.
I
Yeah, I mean, word of mouth is such a powerful thing. It's that is what networking's about. It's about building those networks and linking up with people and helping each other out.
Absolutely. And I'm finding that I'm enjoying marketing too. I started off thinking, oh no, I can't sell myself. But then you realize it's not just about selling yourself. It's about networking and talking to people, and things like this where you're meeting other people. And it's actually, I'm loving it. So
Yeah, it's about building those connections, and it's not always about finding other people to do things for you. It's about what you can do for other people, and working together and collaborations, and just putting yourself out there a bit, even if maybe you're a bit nervous about it, just trying new things.
yes, I've heard somebody said once, which is so wise. If you're feeling fed up, say to people on social media, no one's following me, nobody's buying my books, all the negatives. Instead of thinking that, think, who can I serve and how can I serve? And then when you start serving other people, then it kind of comes back to you. But not only that, if your focus is on supporting other writers, other authors, other entrepreneurs, you get joy from that. And then it does come back anyway.
Totally, yeah. It's about supporting other people, lifting them up. It's not about bashing other people and putting them down. It's a really lovely, wholesome community, the writing community. So many supportive people, and so it's good to just be part of that. Get in there and get involved.
Absolutely. And your Facebook page, Lizzie's book group, is it called?
Yes, yes, that's right. It's a book group on Facebook, and again, that's full of writers. It's full of readers. It's kind of a really supportive place where everybody lifts each other up and really helps each other out. But it's also a good way for readers to get to know authors, and for authors to find out kind of what readers are looking for in the market. And it's a lovely way to sort of intermingle with other people. And there's lots of writing tips and marketing tips in there as well.
It's great. And everybody, all the different creatives, readers and writers, all come with different skill sets. You've got your marketing. For me, it's strategy and business from my background, and somebody else will have something else, cover design. So between us, we've all got the knowledge that we need. So it's a really good place to share, isn't it?
It is. It's also sort of having the courage to go in and ask a question if you don't know something or you need help with something. And also with groups like my book group, there's kind of a section where there's a help section, so you can go in and you can find knowledge within all the different like learning units that are within the group. But if not, then there's so many people there that somebody will generally have the answer to the question, so you can just put it into the group forum and then say, can you please help me with this, and generally somebody will answer.
Yeah, it's excellent. Good. So going on to your third book.
Yes, so the third book I put down was Jane Eyre, which again, the book really kind of moved me because it was such an emotional read. I got very, very much into finding out about the Bronte sisters, and actually my parents took me to their home. We went and visited it, and it was just amazing to walk around where they'd written these kind of iconic books. Obviously not knowing that I was going to end up being a writer one day, but at that time, even without the thought of writing, I was still really, really just inspired by their home and their space, and the fact that they'd been so creative and they'd had a lot of adversity. I just think the same with the book. It is about sort of overcoming fears and overcoming adversity, and finding your own way in life, I guess.
Mm. It has been a popular book on Castaway Books. It was one of my favourites too. My mum introduced me to it when I was very young. She used to read it to me because she used to hear it on the radio when she was a girl. It is a lovely book. Did you see the programme about the Brontes on the television some time ago, a dramatisation about their life?
No, I didn't actually. That's something I have to look for, because I did actually hear that, and I thought that would be something that's really lovely to watch, because I am very interested in kind of really their sisterly bond is what I absolutely loved. how they, they were doing these beautiful books and they were supporting each other and believing in each other, even though in those times really women writers weren't very prevalent. It was quite hard for them. But just the way as sisters, they were behind each other the whole way, which I thought was really lovely.
Absolutely. And as you say, they grew up with such poverty and
Yeah,
adversity. And I remember they used to write, I remember reading, they used to make little tiny miniature books, didn't they? They had a certain language, they made these little tiny books. But they had a very sad life. One of them died very young, didn't she? And
yeah.
their brother, when was it? The brother had a very hard life as well. He had problems. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that comes through in their stories as well, because they are very much sort of thought-provoking stories, and there's a lot of emotion in there and a lot of sadness as well. So I think you can tell that from their writing, some of the things they've been through, because I think a lot of them were kind of not autobiographical, but they reflected their life in some ways.
Mhm.
So yeah, the books are full of sort of feeling, aren't they, and sadness in some aspects.
So how old were you when you discovered the Brontes and had your fascination with them?
Well, I think that was around the time I was kind of leaving school. So I'd done my design course, and then I was moving on to university. So I did a very unusual university where I went to a college where there was only 40 people from all over the world. So yeah, I was one of the youngest ones there. There was two of us that were quite young, and that was a real kind of eye opener for me, because it was just something so different. People had come in from the industry, so they'd already been working for a long time, whereas I'd come straight from like a local college doing graphics. So we kind of went into a lot of different businesses and we worked with them on products and packaging and display and advertising. And it was a kind of a bit of a whirlwind. It was very much 8 in the morning till 8 at night. So it was 4 years packed into 1 year. And yeah, it was a very exciting time.
And you had people from with different cultures, different backgrounds, and it must have been wonderful to have that exposure to so many people with different backgrounds and life experiences at such a young age.
Yes, I mean, it was quite daunting. I was quite quite nervous, to be fair, because a lot of them had industry knowledge, and like you say, there was men, women, there was people from all over the world, and to me, they were kind of really awe-inspiring. They knew their stuff, but obviously they'd come back to college to learn more as well. But it was a very creative place where you were really taught to kind of think outside the box, think of things differently. If it's this way, why is it that way? How could you do it another way? Think of gaps in the market, and it was really a brilliant place to be. If not a bit daunting, it was a lot of fun as well, and I learned so much from everyone there.
And you must have learnt about networking there too, because of all those contacts you made.
Yes, I mean, like I say, we were going into some very different businesses. We had tutors coming in who were very well known in the industry at that time, in graphics and advertising, and marketing. So it was amazing to meet all of those people, and just the things you could learn from them. The way they ran their businesses, the way they designed products, the way they did the packaging. And that was actually when I was at that uni, that's when I invented my first product as well. So I learned a lot about sort of patents and products and design and things like that.
Excellent. Good. So we're on to the fourth book.
Yes, so this is one of my favourite books, which I'm sure loads of people have said the same book over and over, but it's Pride and Prejudice, obviously, by Jane Austen. And I read this, I've probably read this book hundreds and hundreds of times. There's probably lots of times in my life I could say that I was reading this book. But I just loved, again, it's about the relationships in the family, and obviously it's about social standing and how people feel about themselves and how people feel about each other. And people trying to get on in life and do well, and things that are stopping them. And I just find the love story in the middle of it all. I've just always really enjoyed that.
Which is your favourite TV or film dramatisation?
I would watch any. To be
No.
fair, I remember when a friend once, she was like, "You're not watching that again." I used to like get the box set of those out, and I'd watch them over and over, and then friends would come over, and then we'd watch them. She's like, "You're not seriously watching that again?" Yes. So to be fair, we probably had like a VHS video copy that we watched. There was one program and then another in each video. So it was probably a very long time ago. So yeah, I'm quite happy to watch any version of that. I just love it, absolutely love it.
I don't think we can ever have too many films made of any of the Jane Austen stories, because they'll
Oh,
always tell.
there's so many, aren't there? And it's sort of the underlying love, but also there's lots of angst and there's humor as well. You know, the way they talk and interact and get cross with each other, and you know, it's just, for me, that kind of uh the romance that flows through the book is kind of what really appealed to me about romance stories, I think.
Mm. I love the era. I love the language and the way people dress. I think I should have been, I used to think maybe I should be born in a different era, but then you forget about it would probably be very hard. And I doubt I would have been born into the gentry. So,
And very uncomfortable, all that boning and the corsets and the big skirts. Oh, it must have been so heavy and painful. So, but
yes,
they obviously look very beautiful. But I used to think, oh goodness me, they went through a lot, didn't they?
yeah. And we wouldn't have been able to be entrepreneur, pioneering women, would we?
No, no, absolutely not. It must have been so hard to kind of have an opinion and be free and, you know, just say what you think, really. You had to be very careful about what you said and did then, didn't you? So, um,
And the whole thing about the marriage, about having to marry for money, which was, that was the reality then, wasn't it?
yes, which I think is so lovely about the book when you finally see someone marry for love. I think that's such a lovely part of the book, even though they drive each other nuts and they, you know, really, the way they treat each other sometimes. But it's just, you know, that throughout the book that they actually are falling in love, and that's kind of what happens at the end, which is lovely.
Have you only you write romance? Is that all you've ever wanted to write, or is that what you enjoy writing most? Have you got other areas that you've tried before?
Yeah, no, I've started a couple of other books which are kind of, I've started a young adult book and I've started another kind of fantasy type of book as well. But um, because of my readership, I tend to need to get another book out quite quickly. So I'm usually always working on a romance story, and then the other books I'm kind of trying to do when I can. Um, at the moment, I'm working on a kind of 3-book series of romance, but I just really, romance, I find it very uplifting. It's funny. If you've got troubles in your everyday life, it kind of gets you through. And you can just step away from worries for a while. And even when you're writing the books, it's fun to write. You know, the characters, you never know what they're going to get up to. Well, I don't, because I tend to wing it and write as I go along. Um, so it's quite entertaining to write them because you're reading it kind of as you're writing it. I just think they're very, very uplifting romance stories. So
That's interesting. You don't do your plotting at all. You very much go with the flow as you write.
no, yeah. Well, I tend to write the first 20,000 by hand and then I start on the computer. But I do have chapter guides. I have very clear what my characters look like and things like that. So I have all my character notes, and then I literally have chapter guides, and then I just go for it. And then wait and see what happens. And sometimes a character comes in, and I'm like, well, "Where have you come from? I didn't, I didn't know you were there." And suddenly they're like, "Yep, I'm the main part of the story." I'm like, okay. So yeah,
I think that's where the magic happens. I think if you, I'm similar to you. I mean, I know the beginning and the end, and I know the characters and the setting and the themes, but then it takes off and it surprises me. And it's
yes. I mean, some people think, I mean, I know authors that actually plot everything, and that works very well for them because they know exactly where they're going. But for me, I love the kind of wing it. You just see where the story takes you. I know where it's going, but there's lots of surprises along the way, and I really enjoy those.
absolutely. Well, we enjoy your books.
Oh, thank you.
So, The Pride and Prejudice. So, what stage are we now? Did you find love yourself about that time?
Yeah, so I was trying to think back. I think that's probably when I met my husband, but I actually met him quite young. So yeah, I was only 17 when I met my husband. So yes, we've been together over 20 years now, a long time. So yeah, so I met him then. I didn't know obviously he was going to end up being my husband, but I just thought, oh, he's nice. Many years later, we got married. So yeah, so throughout that time, it was kind of going to college, you know, first jobs, meeting my husband, that kind of thing. So it was, yeah, it was a quite a pivotal point of my life as well.
Yes. And it's surprising that you met at 17 and then that relationship kept going, even though you went in very perhaps different directions. You know, once you go off to college and you train
Yeah,
and go into different things, that's it carried on through all of that. It's
yeah.
wonderful.
It's kind of, we feel like we've kind of grown up together, really. He's, yeah, he does something very different to me. He's not a creative person at all. But we support each other. You know, we appreciate what each other does, and yeah, we've been together a very, very long time.
Ah, I think there's something special. I mean, I met my husband when I was 21. We've been married 34 years. So I'm old.
Well, you look very young.
Thank you.
Very
But
glamorous.
but when you get involved when you're young, there is there is a different sort of closeness. It's almost like being brother, sister, family. You know each other so well. When you meet as adults, there's different expectations, I think, of each other. If you meet someone in 30s, 40s, I should imagine that you meet them on a different level. Whereas when you meet when you're very young, you accept all sorts of stuff from each other growing up and know each other's personal stuff that you might not if you met later.
It is like being a best friend, really. It's kind of, you're growing up with your best friend. Like I say, obviously at the time we didn't know we'd end up being married, and but it was just, we just like being together. We like doing things together. We're very different. We've always had very different interests. But yes, we've just grown up together as best friends, really. It's lovely.
Yeah, excellent. It's a lovely story. Okay, so we're going on to your fifth book. That was quick.
Yeah, so the fifth book I was thinking about, because there's so many books I could have mentioned, but I was thinking about Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, by Susan Jeffers, because again, that was a time in my life when I needed a bit of confidence, because that book is very much about low self-esteem and sort of when you're having self-doubt or imposter syndrome and all that kind of thing. And it really kind of just says to you, just do it, just give it a try. If it fails, it fails. If it doesn't, you've tried it. So at that time, one of my daughters was very very unwell, so from the age of 2 for 10 years she was very poorly. So we were in and out of hospitals, and I had to shut my business down. I've been running a business for 15 years. So it was a lot of change in my life, and it was a very, very hard time for all of us. So that book really kind of helped me to kind of not feel quite as scared all the time about what was happening and what was going on.
Mm.
uh, and it's something you can dip in and out of as well. You can look back on it. I think I've probably still got that book. Oh yeah, I have still, could just see it on my shelf now. It's still there all those years later. It's still on my shelf. So it's one of those ones you can just pick up anytime.
So that's when you made the decision to be an author, I gather.
Yes, yeah. So what it was my daughter used to just cough and cough and cough and cough, and she'd had lots of different tests, and it was very just awful, and I just had to stay awake. So I'd literally have to be with her 24/7, and at night we needed to listen to her breathing. So we'd have baby monitor next to her, listening to her breathing. So I needed to stay awake, and I tried the coffee and the sweets and all that kind of thing. And I thought, what can I do? And I'd done creative writing classes when I was younger, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and write a book to keep myself awake. And over the whole next year of nights, I just sat on the top floor of our house looking out the window with the baby monitor, and I just sat and wrote, and it kept me awake. And I filled that book with like loads of sunshine and exotic islands and gorgeous men and women, and it was just pure, fun and frivolity, really. But that book kind of helped me get through what was a really tough time. And then I hid the book in a cupboard for 5 years because
Oh,
I thought, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do with it. I've never done anything like this before. And so I just put it in a cupboard and left it there for 5 years until her health began to improve slightly.
and what book, did that book get published?
Yes, that was Babe Driven. So that was my very first book. And so I was offered a publishing contract for that book, funnily enough, to the first person I sent it to.
Wow.
And they actually were very good. They waited for 6 months for me, but after that time I said to them I just couldn't do it because I needed to be at home, I needed to be with my child. I didn't think I could give them enough time and dedication, which I knew a publisher deserved. And I read an article about someone who was very successfully self-publishing, and I just thought, you know what, I don't want to put this on anyone else, I'll try it myself. And having the graphics background and the retail background, that's what I did. And then because of my networking background, where I believe that it's about who you surround yourself with, I was really, really lucky, but it flew up into the bestseller list as an unknown author. So yeah, who'd have thought that would happen?
I wouldn't say it was luck. It was a combination of all of your skills and talents and all the things you've drawn from your lifetime of experience. It's amazing how that can happen, but it also took a lot of courage from you to be able to take that move. So, wow, well done to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I did have obviously the same as everyone else, imposter syndrome. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I also had gone through quite a bit at that time, and I just thought, you know what? When am I ever going to do it? I need to trust myself. So I did, and I put the book out there, and very, very luckily, like, my network and people picked it up and read it and told other people, and that started a completely new career for me, which my daughter now tells everybody she's like the catalyst of my new career, and she's so excited about it and so happy. And for me, that makes me so proud, because, you know, she's very excited about it, and for her, it kind of, out of something horrible came something so beautiful, which is lovely for both of us, really.
And it is just such a wonderful story that when adversity comes into your life, the decisions that you can make that can really change and turn your life around. It's a wonderfully inspiring story.
Oh, thank you. I mean, during those times, sitting in that room listening to the baby monitor, I never would have thought I'd be doing a completely new career, because I'd had a retail and wholesale business for so long, that, you know, I just didn't know this would happen. But I just thought, you know, you have to adapt. You have to adapt to change your circumstances. So that's what I did. And now, you know, I've met so many other authors and writers and creatives, and I run a networking hour for creatives on Twitter now on a Monday. It's just a lovely environment to be in, a very supportive environment. I feel very lucky.
Excellent. And we will value and appreciate you too.
Oh, thank you. Oh.
Seriously.
Likewise, absolutely likewise.
Oh, it's a wonderful story. And we've come to the end. So the last question I have to ask you is, what would you like to take as your luxury item onto Castaway, on the Castaway Book Island?
Well, yeah, I would take a boat. I'd take a boat so that I could hop off the island when I wanted to. Then I could go to the library, I could go and visit some friends, and then I'd come back to the solitary environment of the island and write some books in the sunshine, which would be wonderful.
I reckon even if I didn't give you the boat, you're the kind of woman, I know, that you would have built a boat.
I'd build one, I would.
Within less than a day.
I would definitely build a boat, yeah.
You would find a way to do it, I know you would. Oh, that's excellent. It's been wonderful, a privilege to meet you here and inspiring to talk to you. So thank you very much, Lizzie.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been really good fun. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this week's episode of Castaway Books. References for all of the books discussed in this show can be found on my website, which is www.abrahkdeborah.wordpress.com. It's the letter K and then my name, Deborah, Deborah. So until next week, goodbye.